everybody. Welcome to Coffee with Craig. It is Friday. If I had one of those little popper thingies, I'd pop it off and celebrate Friday. Anyway, today we're going to talk about something. Well, here's the thing. I'm hoping right now that our friends over at the Brady campaign or our folks over at Everytown or the mayors against illegal guns, oh, I'm sorry. They're probably in jail because they've got illegal guns. But anyway, I'm hoping that they're watching because I know that they claim that their desire is to reduce gun violence. So I have discovered the key, the secret ingredient to ending gun violence. Here it is. Enforce the law. I know, novel concept. Write it down. You're going to want to make sure to write this down and you're going to want to share it. See, because for some reason, those who are part of the gun grabbing culture, those who believe that the Second Amendment really isn't a right, they seem to think that the way in which to reduce gun violence is to take away the rights of law-abiding gun owners. The problem is most of the people who commit violent crimes with guns are criminals. They're not law-abiding citizens. And in most cases, they're committing crimes with guns that they've obtained illegally. That's it. They've obtained them illegally. So they broke the law to get the guns, and now they're breaking the law with the guns. In fact, in most cases of gun violence, the gun violence itself is not the only crime. They've either done something else before then, or in the midst of committing that gun crime, they've committed another crime. It's not rocket science, I know, but some folks don't seem to get it. For example, in Chicago, when they did that study, they just did a recent study or report talking about how to reduce gun violence in that community. Now, interesting, they talked about, well, we need to work with young people. I don't disagree. We need to make sure that we provide economic opportunities and education. I don't disagree. But absolutely nothing in that report did they mention increased investigation of crimes. Nowhere in there did they talk about increased enforcement and arrests of crimes or increased punishment of crimes. In fact, most law enforcement agencies or most law enforcement officers will tell you there's only two things that are sure to reduce crime. That is surety of being caught and severity of punishment. Those are the two things that actually reduce crime. Take a look at California. We had 3 strikes. Crime went down dramatically over the entire time of 3 strikes, right? But then we came up with a bunch of other laws that then turned around and started letting people out. And guess what? Crime went up. And guess what went up with it? Violent crime. That's exactly what happened. Violent crime went right up along with it. And the biggest challenge is that amongst not enforcing all laws, they've decided we're not going to enforce gun laws. Under the Obama administration, we saw a 40% decrease in the enforcement of federal gun crimes. 40% decrease. In fact, the enforcement of gun crimes hit an all-time high during 2004 under President Bush. Now, there were 2 main laws. There were 2 things in particular that pushed that increase. 85%, in fact, of all of the prosecutions, of the federal prosecutions of gun crimes came in 2 areas. Possession of a firearm by a felon, and possession of a firearm during the commission of another federal crime. Hello? Let's see. I'm going after criminals. And in particular, I'm going after criminals with guns. And see, those crimes actually increase the amount of time that they're going to spend in jail, in many cases because of mandatory minimums. But what happened? Well, what happened was they decided to stop enforcing it. And it wasn't just a federal thing. In fact, at the local levels, in many local cases, they decided that they were going to not enforce gun laws. In particular, they used them as plea agreements. See, a lot of people don't know this, but while the court system, while the right to have a trial before a jury of your peers, that's a fundamental part of our criminal justice system. Well, that's just not the case. That's hardly the case anymore. At the state level, 94% of all cases are determined by a plea bargain. Not in a courtroom, but between the judge and two lawyers are the ones who decide exactly what it's going to look like. And they come up with a plea agreement. Now, oftentimes what happens in these plea agreements is the gun charges get thrown out. The Indianapolis Star did a study, and this is just in Marion County. So they did a breakdown of all the gun crimes in their area. And here's what they found. What they found was more than half of felony gun charges were dismissed, largely due to plea agreements. Possession of a firearm by a serious violent felon and the charge specifically aimed at getting violent criminals off the streets was dismissed in 41% of cases. 41% of the cases, the very law that is set aside to get violent criminals off the street, it was dismissed. 41%. And, don't get me wrong, I'm not going after Marion County. They're not the only ones. It happens all across the nation. So here's what happens. If you're a violent felon, or if you're a felon, or if you're a criminal, your gun charges get dropped. But if you're not a violent felon, well, if you're just a law-abiding citizen who couldn't keep up with all the paperwork that the state requires, well, hey, there's nothing really to plea bargain, is there? So you're going to face your gun charges. That's what you get for being law-abiding. See, now if maybe you had decided to commit another violent crime, something along the way, maybe a misdemeanor or something like that, maybe you'd get your gun charges dropped. I know, just marinate on that for a minute. Soak that in. Yeah, that's how it is. That is the criminal justice system. That is law enforcement. That is how justice is meted out in these United States of America. Ain't you proud? Anyway, that's my rant for today. Let's see what you folks have to say on the subject. I know, I can only imagine you guys are, but the criminals, they're so, they need you to be more lenient on them because they've had such hard lives. I know. I feel your pain. Do you feel me feeling your pain? Okay. Let me see. Here we go. Allow less laws to be enforced and you have created enough chaos to bring in martial law. That very well may be the thing, but I think it's a little less insidious and a little more stupid than that. I think that people seem to think, the people on the other side of the aisle or a certain side of the aisle seem to believe that more laws actually just make a difference. That, well, if I create a law, well then people will obey it. Kind of like a gun-free zone sign, I get it. There's some magical force that comes with a gun-free zone sign that says, no guns shall pass. Yeah, I know. I know. I'm laughing too. It's just not going to work. But for some reason, they think it happens. They believe in magic and fairy dust and unicorns and all of that fun stuff. That there be how they be. Protect the criminals, prosecute the law-abiding citizens. What's next? POW camps? Yeah, I don't know if it would be POW camps, but it would definitely be, let's take all the law-abiding citizens and let's put them in a camp over here. What's interesting is that when we decide that we don't want to live in their chaos, we want to move over here so we don't have to deal with their chaos, then they want to pass laws called sustainable communities that will make us move and live in their chaos. Or they move to us. They move out to where we are, where there's jobs and there's safety and there's quality education and quality of life. And then they destroy it because they can't do without us. Once again, that thar just be how it be. The liberals in California don't like to enforce laws unless it's to take law-abiding citizens' rights away. See, they believe in laws that do what they want. It was funny, I was listening to Justice Antonin Scalia, the late Justice Antonin Scalia, and he was talking about this concept of purposivism. Right? In other words, they look at any law and they say, I am going to interpret this law in a way in which helps me accomplish my purpose. If this law does not help me accomplish my purpose, then it is of no use to me. I'm going to find every way to ignore this law. And if I can get away with it, even if it's unconstitutional, as members of the California State Assembly have stated, even if it's unconstitutional, they don't care. They're going to do what they're going to do because they figure, hey, by the time it winds its way through the courts, this law is going to be up and running for a good long while. Once again, that's how we roll here in California. JJ Ramirez says the camp would be San Quentin. I don't know if there's enough room in San Quentin for all of us law-abiding citizens. Well, I wonder how many of us there are left in California. There's a good number, but I don't think, I realize our numbers are dwindling, but I do believe that we would not all fit in San Quentin. Don't give the ideologically driven that much credit. Yeah, no, they're not necessarily logically driven. Or it's logic, but it's a different kind of logic. See, most of us look at all the facts and the information and we come up with a conclusion. That's called deductive reasoning. Their reasoning is inductive. They've already determined the conclusion that they want, and so they only consider evidence that supports their conclusion. That's inductive reasoning. So that's the logic that they use. It doesn't necessarily get them the end that they want, but they use it as an argument in order to get the legislation that they want or the policies that they want put in place. Here's the last one. Let's go, Frank. Frank says, this is the most frustrating part of the gun control argument. They're not interested in punishment, rather removal of guns and creating for prohibited persons. Exactly. Their whole goal is they want to get rid of guns. They don't want to, and their whole issue in the gun violence thing is they don't want to get rid of violence. They just want to get rid of guns because they think if they just get rid of guns, that the violence will just disappear. Poof! Like that. Yeah, it didn't work in Australia. Nope. Hasn't worked in England. Nope. Hasn't worked. Hasn't worked any place where it has been instituted. Because guess what? When you take away the guns from all the law-abiding, guess who's left with guns? The government and the criminals, which some people would say are one and the same. Mic drop. That's it. Have a good weekend, folks. Take care. Stay free.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.